All right, Adam. So just to recap, over the last 3 months, you've been experiencing diarrhea, abdominal pain after meals,
Yes.
fatigue, and a loss of 3 pounds.
Yeah, correct.
Unintentionally.
Correct.
Okay. And your labs do indicate that you have low magnesium, hematocrit, and hemoglobin, which we'll touch on in a little bit.
Okay.
And you were positive for celiac.
Okay.
All right. So just to understand a little bit, with celiac, what's happening is when you're eating gluten, the proteins that are in gluten-containing food are causing almost like an autoimmune reaction where your body's kind of attacking itself and killing little finger-like guys that are in your stomach that help absorb food, vitamins, minerals, water,
Sure.
which can explain the diarrhea and the fatigue and all the things you've been experiencing.
Right.
And with the hemoglobin and hematocrit, that is an indicator, a big indicator of your red blood cells, your iron.
So can you explain to me, am I going to be able to heal this or just sort of contain this through avoiding those proteins?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
So as we go on with diet education and talking about celiac, the biggest thing that's for you is going to be avoiding gluten.
Let's see.
So in order to avoid gluten, I've got a little list here for you.
Great. And
this is from the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, talking about gluten-free.
Okay.
But there's also an organization for celiac, celiac.org, and they have a lot of great lists, shopping lists, talking about nutrition label reading,
Great.
To make that easier for you.
Okay.
But just to talk about it up front, what can you eat? Because a lot of times people think taking gluten away means you can't eat anything.
I think no bread.
Right.
You know?
Right. So right off the bat, when you think no bread, there's a lot of options now.
Sure.
So with bread, what we want to look for is that label of gluten-free, and avoiding wheat products, rye products, barley products, and I have that listed out here for you just so you can remember it.
Can you tell me, as important as bread is to me, does alcohol like beer or liquor that does contain gluten?
There are some gluten-free beers out there, and there are some other grain options that you can use for alcohol.
I see.
So that's something where a lot of restaurants have gotten really good about labeling on their menus gluten-free options.
Is this a pretty widespread sort of ailment, or is this a common?
It's becoming more common. We're getting more
due to our poor diet.
No.
Okay. So you were recommending that the Celiac Foundation has some great references, and this is just kind of an at a glance sort of reference for me here.
Mm-hmm,
okay,
mm-hmm.
So I can research that a little bit more on my
own. Right, but as we sit here today, just to give you a good overview when you leave and you go home to see what foods you have in your daily life that you eat that have gluten in them, and then what foods you already have that you don't even need to replace.
Sure.
So fruit, vegetables, meat, poultry, fish, dairy, and beans, nuts, and legumes are naturally gluten-free.
Great.
So if you have those products, you're good to go. Where it gets iffy is once we get into the grains and cereals, because that's where gluten lives. And especially with processed foods, it's kind of where we're looking at to be very careful. Okay. Because it's used for thickeners, stabilizers.
Sure, so, it's everywhere.
Right. So just being careful as you go through. So as you read labels, look for gluten-free, look for items that don't contain wheat or rye or barley or any of the listed things on here. And the more you do it, the easier it will become. It'll become a lifestyle versus just avoiding things.
Okay.
And yeah, do you have any other questions for me?
I really don't. I'm looking at the reference here and it says it's pretty much, meat and fish and vegetables. Dairy's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just be careful maybe in some yogurts that are flavored or something sometimes.
I do like a flavored yogurt.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can have a thickener in there. Just be mindful that it's not any of these that are listed.
And when can, let's assume that I follow this
Mhm.
strictly, when can I sort of start seeing results or maybe not the pain in the abdomen after meals? When is this like a week's thing or a month's thing?
So it's dependent on how long and the severity of what your gut has been through.
I see. Does the gut heal itself?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Over time, once your body doesn't have the gluten to attack, it's not going to have anything to attack anymore. So your body's going to be able to kind of almost regenerate itself.
Okay.
So that's why it's really, really important to take it seriously and just start small.
Sure.
And move your way up.
Sure.
And so to address your question about how long it takes, some people feel better within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. For some people, it takes a few months to really get everything regenerated, turned over. So patience is key.
Okay.
Okay? So we're going to follow up in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So you can just kind of tell me how things are going, how the diet's going, how you're following it, if there's any more questions.
Will you be asking me again in 2 weeks, kind of like my average run through of what I eat in a day sort of thing? You want me to kind of track that a little bit?
Yeah. So that's one thing we're going to do as we address some action plan on your part, and then our overall outcome as we address the celiac. Okay? So action plan for you for the next 2 weeks is, of course, omitting gluten-containing foods. Really being serious about that. Make a grocery list before you go. Do a little research so it's not as daunting when you're in the grocery store.
Sure.
And if you go out to eat, talk to the people, talk to the chefs, let them know it's a serious problem and that you need to make sure your food is safe.
Great.
Don't be afraid of doing that. But a big part of this is going to be your food diary.
Okay.
Just so we can track what you're eating and how you feel afterwards, and we can kind of see if there's any areas that we can address.
Okay.
So that's on your part, and then our overall outcome, of course, is to relieve the fatigue and the abdominal pain. And
yeah, that abdominal pain, that's my main, fatigue, everybody gets tired, and I really didn't notice the weight loss, and but the diarrhea and the abdominal pain, I'm ready to be done with that.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely debilitating.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big part of this, and just allowing your gut to heal.
Great.
Okay?
Great.
All right. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Do it live.